The creation of Dungeons & Dragons stands as one of the most monumental achievements in gaming history, a revolutionary fusion of imagination, strategy, and storytelling that forever changed the way we play. Last episode, we explored how Gygax and Arneson combined their talents to create D&D, a game that allowed players to step into the shoes of heroes, explore fantastical worlds, and tell their own stories, something that was completely revolutionary. Arneson, the creative and experimental game designer, had pioneered the concept of role-playing in his Blackmore campaign, where players took on the roles of individual characters in a living, evolving world. Gygax, a passionate wargamer and rules enthusiast, had founded the Gen Con gaming convention and co-authored the Chainmail miniature rules, which laid the groundwork for D&D's mechanics. But as D&D's popularity soared, the partnership between Arneson and Gygax began to fracture. Disputes over authorship, recognition, and royalty distributions drove a wedge between the two men. Arneson felt that his contributions to the game, particularly his innovative ideas about role-playing and character-driven narratives, were being overshadowed by Gygax's growing prominence as the face of TSR. The tension escalated into legal battles, with Arneson filing lawsuits. He argued that he was owed royalties and proper credit for his role in creating D&D. Gygax, on the other hand, maintained that he had done the majority of the work in refining and publishing the game, and that Arneson's claims were overstated. This rift wasn't just a personal dispute, it had far-reaching consequences for the game and its community. The legal battles placed pressure on TSR's leadership and diverted attention from its core mission of making great games. Meanwhile, the growing tension between Arneson and Gygax cast a shadow over D&D's early years, leaving fans to wonder what might have been if the two creators had remained united. On this episode of Dice Dungeons & Dreamers, we'll delve into this chapter of D&D's history. We'll explore how the partnership that once thrived on mutual creativity devolved into conflict, and how this rift shaped the future of the game, its creators, and the community that loved it. In the last episode, we talked about how D&D was first published in 1974 by Tactical Studies Rules, TSR, a company co-founded by Gygax and Don Kay. And as it rose in popularity, it needed more and more business know-how to grow the game and the company. So while Gygax became the public face of TSR, Arneson's role in the company was less formal. Despite his significant contributions to the game, Arneson, although a shareholder in TSR, was not involved in the day-to-day operations. Instead, in April 1975, he entered into a royalty agreement that entitled him to 10% of the cover price for each copy of D&D sold. This agreement acknowledged both Arneson and Gygax as the co-authors and stipulated that TSR would handle the publication, sale, and distribution of the game. And for a time, this arrangement functioned without major issue. Arneson received his royalties as agreed, and the game continued to grow in popularity, with both Gygax and Arneson actively promoting it. But the landscape began to shift in 1977 when TSR introduced Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, or AD&D. This new iteration aimed to provide a more comprehensive and structured rule set, ostensibly to standardize gameplay and expand the game's appeal. AD&D was marketed as a refined and professionalized version of the original game, with meticulously detailed rules and more polished presentations. Notably, AD&D materials credited only Gygax as the author, omitting Arneson's name entirely. TSR, now officially TSR Hobbies Inc., contended that AD&D was a distinct product separate from the original D&D and therefore did not warrant royalty payments to Arneson. Gygax argued that AD&D was largely his own work, built on the foundation of the original game, but significantly expanded and reimagined. Arneson, as you can imagine, had a different view. He saw AD&D as a natural extension of their original creation, incorporating foundational concepts he had developed, such as character-driven narratives and dynamic dungeon exploration. He believed that AD&D owed its existence to the ideas and mechanics he pioneered in Blackmore in the original D&D. This fundamental disagreement over the nature of AD&D set the stage for the ensuing legal battles. The creation of AD&D would not only strain the relationship between Arneson and Gygax, but also highlighted the challenges of collaboration in a rapidly growing industry. As John Peterson notes in Game Wizards, the conflict was emblematic of the tensions between creative vision and commercial interest, as well as the difficulty of fairly crediting and compensating contributors in collaborative creative processes. So in November of 1979, Dave Arneson filed a lawsuit against Gary Gygax and TSR Hobbies in the United States District Court for the District of Minnesota. At its core, the lawsuit centered on allegations of breach of the 1975 royalty agreement and unauthorized use of intellectual property. Arneson claimed that TSR's failure to pay royalties for AD&D products constituted a violation of their contract and that the company had misrepresented the authorship of the new materials. A pivotal issue in the lawsuit was whether the court had personal jurisdiction over Gygax, a resident of Wisconsin. Gygax argued that his interactions with Minnesota, where Arneson lived, were solely in his capacity as an agent of TSR, and it did not establish sufficient personal contacts to warrant jurisdiction. He maintained that his involvement in promoting and marketing D&D in Minnesota was part of his role as a TSR executive, not as an individual. However, the court disagreed and found that Gygax's actions went beyond his corporate role. His direct communications with Arneson, efforts to boost sales in Minnesota, and public claims of authorship established sufficient grounds for personal jurisdiction. In its memorandum, the court stated, by causing games to be marketed and advertised in Minnesota, which he either claimed to have co-authored or solely authored, Gygax availed himself to the state laws to protect the contractual rights based on his authorship interest. This ruling allowed the case to proceed, focusing on the substantive issue of authorship and royalty entitlements. As John Peterson notes in Game Wizards, the lawsuit was not just a legal battle over money, it was a fight for recognition and legacy. Arneson sought to protect his contributions to the game and ensure that his role in the creation was acknowledged. Gygax, on the other hand, viewed AD&D as his own work, built on the foundation of the original game but significantly expanded and redefined. The case highlighted the complexities of collaboration in a rapidly growing industry and the challenges of fairly crediting and compensating contributors. It also underscored the tension between artistic vision and commercial interest as TSR sought to protect its intellectual property while navigating the legal and financial implications of the dispute. Ultimately, the lawsuit would have lasting consequences for both Arneson and Gygax, as well as for the future of Dungeons & Dragons. It marked the end of their collaboration and set the stage for further legal and personal conflicts that would shape the game's trajectory in the years to come. And if you'd like to read the entire court documents about this case, I'll put a link to the almost 900 pages of legal briefs in the description below. In March of 1981, after nearly 2 years of legal wrangling, Dave Arneson and TSR Hobbies Inc. reached a confidential settlement. The agreement marked the end of a contentious legal battle and marked the official end of a relationship between Arneson and Gygax that was never repaired. It also left a lasting impact on the future of Dungeons & Dragons. The settlement stipulated that both Arneson and Gygax would be credited as co-creators on all D&D products moving forward. This was a significant victory for Arneson, who had fought to ensure that his contributions to the game were officially recognized. Additionally, Arneson was to receive 2.5% royalty on Advanced Dungeons & Dragons products. While this was a reduction from the original 10% royalty for the original D&D, it applied to a broader range of materials, including supplements, modules, and other AD&D related products. So in the long run, a net gain for Arneson. This arrangement provided Arneson with a steady income, reportedly amounting to a comfortable six-figure sum annually over the next 2 decades. For Arneson, the settlement was not just about financial compensation, though. It was about securing his legacy as co-author of what would become one of the most influential games in history. Despite the financial resolution, personal tensions between Arneson and Gygax persisted. In public forums, interviews, and editorials, Gygax began to minimize Arneson's role in the creation of D&D. He often referred to Arneson's contributions in diminishing terms, emphasizing his own work in refining and expanding the game. For example, Gygax frequently described Arneson's ideas as raw or unpolished, suggesting that they required significant development to become the game that players know and love. However, this public downplaying of Arneson's role further strained the relationship, leading to a prolonged period of mutual animosity. In a 2004 interview, Arneson reflected on their interactions with a sense of resignation. To quote, "We see each other at conventions. He does his thing and I do mine. There's no stabbing each other in the back." This statement suggests a professional détente, but it also hints at the underlying tensions that never fully dissipated. While the two men maintained a cordial distance in public, their relationship remained strained, a reminder of the personal and professional conflicts that had shaped the early years of Dungeons & Dragons. For Arneson, the settlement was a bittersweet victory, a recognition of his contributions, but also a reminder of the challenges of protecting his legacy in the face of corporate and personal rivalries. For Gygax, it was a turning point in his career. He continued to shape the future of D&D while grappling with the fallout from the legal battles which drained TSR's meager coffers. But ultimately, this legal battle was a distraction from Gygax running TSR and creating AD&D products to further TSR's business interest, a fact that will cost him dearly in a few years. And in the end, the settlement ensured both men would be remembered as co-creators of Dungeons & Dragons, but also underscored the human stories of ambition, creativity, and conflict that shaped the game's legacy. The legal disputes and personal conflicts between Arneson and Gygax had lasting implications for the D&D franchise. The settlements ensured Arneson's financial stability and proper credit, but the once collaborative relationship between the two creators was irreparably damaged. By the mid-1980s, distracted by the legal struggles, Gygax and TSR became threatened by internal struggles. Meanwhile, Arneson largely stepped away from the industry, though he continued to make occasional contributions to gaming and teaching. Despite their differences, both men left an indelible mark on tabletop gaming, and their combined efforts ultimately birthed an industry that continues to thrive today. The debate over who contributed more to D&D remains a topic of discussion among fans and historians. But the one thing is certain: without both Arneson's vision of roleplay and Gygax's ability to structure and commercialize it, the game would not exist as we know it. But the very next conflict was just around the corner, and another member of the party was about to go down. In the next episode, we'll talk about how Gygax lost control over his own co-creation and TSR, the company that he co-founded. It's another fascinating story in the history of Dungeons & Dragons. If you don't want to miss that and more episodes on how to get more enjoyment out of D&D or other tabletop role-playing games, make sure you subscribe to get announcements every time I release a new video. And while you're there, go ahead and hit that like button too. I'm nearly at 500 subscribers, and I just need a few more to put me over my first big goal for this channel, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and until next time, may all your rolls be nat 20s.